Shalom, friends.
Shalom, friends.
We're going to continue our story about how we began. We left off with you going to see your significant other after having cornered me into telling you that if I had a choice, I would not want you to have a boyfriend. And I know you don't want to say a lot about it, and that's fine. You can just tell everybody what you decided ultimately.
Yeah, well, I just decided that I would discontinue that relationship and see what happens in the future.
Yeah. And I felt pretty confident that Theresa was understanding that it was a big question mark, and that I hadn't sold her on anything, and that she was making her own choice. I didn't intend to share this, but I think part of it is because I think as I went through my divorce, one of the things that was hard for me to figure out was where my responsibility began and ended. I almost kind of feel like, without getting into details, the things that I was told were my fault weren't, and the things that I didn't think were my fault were. The culpability, it's equal. I mean, in terms of my first wife and I getting married, we shouldn't have gotten married. I said that before. I think we both knew that, but know that now. But I definitely didn't convince her to get married. That was a choice she made, and I made. We each made that choice. But I guess I wasn't entirely sure, and I wanted to be certain that I was not doing that with Theresa. So Theresa came back, and I don't even remember how this went down. I don't think we need to talk about it, but you told me that you decided to break off your relationship. Now, nothing really changed for us. In fact, I would almost say nothing changed for us, other than there was not that underlying tension for you, because you were spending time with me knowing you had a boyfriend and were trying to figure out what you were supposed to do. But we spent time talking. I think we spent time praying. It was pretty simple. We both had a very clear understanding that, like I'd said before, just to reiterate, I needed to leave the door open a little bit, and there was this question about what was going to happen, and we just were really building our friendship and not having any clue what was going to happen in the future. So ultimately, I did get divorced, and that really happened pretty soon. I mean, we were, at that time, at the end of December, when Theresa and I had our conversation about her boyfriend, that might even have been in the beginning of the year, January maybe. It's been a while. Our memory's not as good as it used to be, isn't it? That's okay. It's not really relevant. But I went in January to my court date. That was in January. So it was really a brief amount of time. We didn't spend we hadn't really had a lot of opportunities to spend time with each other. We probably saw each other a couple times at Bible study or something. That's about it. And maybe spent some time talking. I don't know. Definitely playing air hockey, though. We definitely did that. So I had spent some time with a lot of other people for a few months, sharing what was going on in my divorce situation. Whereas in the past, I'd spent that time, a lot of the time, with my parents. And up until the last few months before my divorce, my folks knew everything that was going on. And especially my father was witness to some of my worst moments where I was really hurt or angry. And I don't know that I was really conscious of it, but God had led me to speak to other people about those difficult moments a lot more than He had with my parents. In fact, they were kind of out of the loop. And now when the day came for me to go to court, my court date, there was no question in my mind that my father was going to be the guy who would go with me. So he did, and I think I drove and he came with me. And I had to fill him in on what had been going on for like 2 or 3 months or something. And it took us a while to go over all that. And then the conversation continued from the truck, walk into the courthouse, and then we were sitting in this sort of empty waiting area outside of the courtroom that we were going to go in and talking. And then it slowly started filling up with people, including my former wife and the people who were there to support her and her lawyer. And it got really noisy in there. Just people were talking over each other. And we had gotten to the point where we were done catching up. And my dad said, well, let's pray. And I just want to make the point about my father. He's not the sort of person who wears his faith in Yeshua right out here on his sleeve. And he's not real preachy. Although he's had his preachy moments. That's not something that he did much at all. But I would say, especially in the moments that were most necessary, that's how would I put it? The most important moments. My father's faith just shines out, and he said, "Let's pray," and it was so loud in there we could hardly hear each other. And he's just totally unashamed. I mean, we had to shout to pray, and he started praying, and he had no concern about who was there or who was listening and what anybody thought of him. And that was a powerful moment for me. Not that I didn't know that about my dad, because I did, but just to see, his faith and his lack of fear. And I think especially because I hadn't spent a lot of time talking to him for a couple of months leading up to that time, I probably missed that fellowship with my father a little bit, and it was nice to be there with him and have him be the one to be there supporting me. And it was a pretty cut and dried case. We didn't have children. We had limited resources. The judge had no reason not to grant her divorce, even though I had contested the divorce. That's just the way it goes. There was nothing I could do to stop it. So that very day, I drove over to see you, where you lived with your family, and it's really hard to explain it. This barrier that existed between us, one that was certainly supposed to be there, and that we didn't try to remove. I mean, we were like looking at each other on the other side of a curtain, kind of like seeing each other through, not even really clearly. Well, that was lifted, and we felt completely free to begin our relationship with each other, is the way I would put it. So I don't think it's a common story. I don't hear anybody telling a story like that, but I know for me, I was divorced. My situation changed dramatically, and I was able to really remove that barrier in my mind and think about Theresa and think about my relationship with her. And Theresa, she's very modest, and that's good. And we had to talk a little bit about it. She didn't necessarily want me to share this, but I think it's an important point that when I went to see her that day, she tried to give me a kiss. And, who cares, right? I mean, gosh, these days in this culture, that's no big deal. And I wonder how many people watching this video are shaking their heads thinking, how stupid is this guy? He's talking about that like it matters. But I knew it did. I did not want our relationship with each other to be confused at all. I didn't want us to have physical attraction being what really led and directed our relationship. I wanted it to be pure. I wanted it to honor God. And certainly not that Theresa didn't want that, but who tells you can't kiss somebody, right? I mean, you don't ever hear that. And I stopped her and I said, look, we don't need to kiss each other to know that it's going to be good. I know that I'm going to like to kiss you. We don't have to do it. And that was no problem. The thing was, I figured that if I had told her, I don't think we need to do that one time, that was it. That was good. And the thing that I really didn't expect, because Theresa, from the very moment that I've met her, I know is someone who truly loves God, has been seeking to follow Yeshua. That's who she is. I did not expect her to try to kiss me again. And I don't know if it was the next day or the day after, I don't know, but it was, pretty soon after that. And I have to say, I'm not trying to blame her, because I'm certain as I think about it today that if I had told her just one more time, we really don't need to do that. Let's not do that. She would not have tried to initiate that ever again. And it would have been fine. We would have been totally fine. But I didn't. I was actually happy to have the excuse to give her a kiss. I felt like if I wasn't the one who initiated it, I was off the hook. Well, I was going to find out that wasn't the case, that really a greater responsibility was on me. I'll end that part, for Theresa's sake, by saying that there's more I want to talk about with regards to what I felt like is something people don't talk about in terms of if you want to go through an engagement, a courtship, and honor God, the sort of things that you need to expect and how you should handle that so that you can actually do what you intend to do. Theresa and I did not get into some full-on physical relationship in any sense of the word, and I think most people would really think that we're prudish if we were to talk about what we saw as issues. But ultimately, we had some struggles with what we felt were not really sticking to our boundaries. And ultimately, months before we got married, which was, gosh, I don't know, about a year and a half after we, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
About a year and a half after I got divorced. Again, I got divorced. We started our relationship right away. Theresa, I think she wanted to get married that year. And I kind of felt like not only were we probably not ready, although we felt like we were ready, our families weren't ready for that, and it was good for us to be engaged longer. And I think that ultimately we both realized that was good.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the following June we got married. And again, months before we got married, God had really given us victory in that area. We had total control over ourselves and the fact that we were able to stick with whatever boundaries we put forth. And so we were going to get married. The only other thing I'd say about that is, what were we, maybe 2 weeks into beginning our relationship with each other? We had a conversation about that.
We knew right away.
Yeah.
Certainly by 2 weeks.
We knew right away. I knew it right away. You knew it right away.
Because we're soulmates.
Yeah, we are. We knew it right away. And it was just sort of a like, is it too soon to say this? kind of thing, And just a couple of weeks in, we talked about it. And it was a really easy conversation. I kind of always feel like I watch these people, like, and they're like proposing, and they're like nervous about whether or not the person's going to say yes. And I think, well, that's just stupid. Don't ask that person to marry if you don't know they're going to say yes. Don't you agree? Like, that just seems really dumb. I would think so too. So anyway, we were sure we were going to get married. We just knew that that's what was meant for us. So we'll end this one with just talking about how we started planning our wedding after we announced to the family that we were going to get married, that we were engaged. And what do you say that was? Maybe was it in like November-ish or something?
Well, it was 9 months after we were a couple, we announced that we intended on marrying, and then 9 months later we got married.
I gotcha. Well, that's good that I don't remember it that way, but I'm glad you do. You're good with those sort of things. So after we made that announcement, we started planning, and right after we started planning, and we didn't have this massive 400-person wedding, like 80 people or something, I guess. We didn't spend a lot of money except where we got married. We got married in a rose garden. And we'll talk a little bit about we'll pick up with the wedding, but the planning is one little funny story. We made some really, really nice wedding invitations. What did they look like?
They had, like pressed flowers.
Pressed flowers in the paper, and then we had like regular paper that was printed on, not the flower paper, right?
Yeah.
And then over that, like a translucent overlay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we punched holes in them and tied some pretty ribbon in there. They were very nice.
Mm-hmm.
We made them ourselves. We enjoyed it. We were not stressed out at all planning.
We enjoyed planning.
I mean, did we have any stress at all planning together? No, we didn't. We really enjoyed it. And I think we were purposeful to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think God really blessed us with that. But part of it is we didn't give in to the temptation to be pulled by other people's ideas about what our wedding should be, and that happens. And some of that was kind of unexpected, but people had their ideas, and we were just like, this is our wedding. We're going to plan it our way, and we weren't interested in putting on a big show for a bunch of people who didn't care that much about us.
Yeah.
Just inviting the people who, we thought having them come to our wedding was meaningful for us, and it would really be meaningful for them. Additionally, but it had to be meaningful for us as well. And so I'll end with a funny story about that. I think we made really excellent wedding invitations, and I knew Theresa was of sound mind. I wasn't really concerned about whether or not she was, crazy. But for just a quick moment, she scared me, because I said to her as we were wrapping up these invitations, I said, Theresa, we really have made some exceptional invitations. And she said, just exceptional? And I was floored for a second. I'm thinking, just exceptional. Oh my goodness. Well, what do you want from me? Like, if exceptional's not good enough, what am I supposed to do? And so it kind of clicked in my head. She didn't hear me right. She thought I said acceptable. And I said, I didn't say acceptable. I said exceptional. You know, as in excellent, as in really great. And she laughed and said, oh, ha, ha, and laughed at herself for not understanding what I said or hearing me properly. Big sigh of relief for me. I'm like, okay, she's not crazy. So I think that's it. Do we have anything else to share up until wedding day? Anything about wedding preparations or like, gosh, I don't know. I can't think of anything.
No, just that, you know, God was good to us and He blessed us and He provided for us, and He did so, like, I think especially like my dress and then the bridesmaids' dresses.
Oh, yeah.
We
Well, that's a
got,
good thing
like,
to...
excellent deals on those.
Yeah, your dress was perfect. I have to say, Teresa's dress was literally perfect for her. I mean, absolutely perfect. And how much did you pay for that?
$99.
$99, yeah. And then the bridesmaids' dresses.
Those were on clearance at a store, I think was maybe closings. Those were like $49.
It was incredible.
Yeah, God bless us.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. Maybe we'll, maybe I'll share a wedding. The wedding picture will be for the next video. All right, so that's it for this one. We'll pick up with some more interesting stuff after that. So shalom, friends.
Shalom.
Until next time.